She is pretty, Daddy. The Chinese bride was laughed off until rancher's daughter called her Mama. Montana Territory, 1885. The white steeple of the town church pierced the grey November sky like a solemn prayer. Inside, every pew was filled as the town gathered to honor its fallen sons, farmers turned soldiers, husbands buried under foreign flags. Hymns floated through the air like smoke from the wood stove near the altar. Then, the heavy doors creaked open. My Lynn stepped in, and a silence spread like frost. She wore a dress of red silk, embroidered with golden phoenixes. It was creased from being packed away, but unmistakably a wedding dress from a land and ocean away. Her gloved hands held a single white lily. She walked slowly down the aisle, chin raised, her dark eyes fixed forward. Every soft step of her slippers echoed louder than the hymn that had just ended. Whispers stirred like dry leaves. What is she doing here? That dress, has she no shame? Look at her, making a spectacle. A sharp laugh rang from a woman in a back pew, too loud to be accidental. Well, the woman smirked, who's going to tell her she belongs here now? The church rippled with stifled laughter. My Lynn felt every giggle like a needle to her ribs. Her breath caught, but she didn't stop, didn't flinch. They will see I honor him, she thought, remembering the man she had crossed the world to marry, only to learn he had died in a war before she ever saw his face. This was his memorial. All she had left was his name, a memory of a promise, and this dress. She reached the front, laid the lily at the memorial altar, and turned. Her face was flushed, her hands damp beneath the gloves. The laughter behind her didn't fade. Neither did the sting. She couldn't stay. My Lynn turned and walked back through the judgment, out into the snow-choked afternoon. The cold slapped her face as she reached the edge of the porch, her chest rising in short, shamed breaths. Her vision blurred. She didn't see the man leaning against the oak beam. I saw what they did, he said. She startled, then froze. Cole Barrett stood in the shadow of the porch, his hat low, coat buttoned to his neck. He didn't step toward her, just watched, his presence as calm and still as the mountains behind him. I just wanted to honor him, she said, her voice a trembling whisper. Cole nodded once. His voice was gravel and gentleness. You did. She looked away. They laughed. They always laugh. They don't know any better, he said simply. He reached into his coat, pulled out a folded handkerchief, and held it out. She hesitated, then took it. Why do you care, she whispered. Cole's grey eyes met hers. Because everyone deserves to be seen with respect, especially when they're grieving. That one sentence struck deeper than all the jeers. It didn't pity her. It acknowledged her. She held the handkerchief to her eyes. I thought maybe wearing the dress would remind them I was once promised a life here. Cole didn't answer right away. Then he said, it reminded me. He tipped his hat gently, then stepped past her down the steps into the snow. My Lynn stood there a moment longer, her breath misting in the cold, and somewhere inside, buried beneath the shame, a small flicker of warmth stirred. Sometimes, all it takes is one man not to laugh. The snow had settled into silence by the time Cole found her again, standing near the back steps of the church, the hem of her red silk dress darkened with slush. You did something brave in there, he said finally. She turned, startled. Wearing a dress, she asked, half a laugh, half a plea. Showing up, he answered. Knowing they'd tear you apart for it, her hands fluttered nervously. It was foolish. No, he said, his eyes steady. It was honest. She said nothing, waiting for the pity, the polite farewell. Instead, he cleared his throat. I run a horse ranch north of town. Hollow Ridge. It's always needing more hands than I have. He hesitated. I've been looking for someone to help around the house. Someone steady. Someone my daughter, Lily, can count on. Her brows pulled together. You want to hire me? I want to offer you a job, he said simply. He met her gaze without flinching. Because you're not afraid of standing alone. Because you didn't run when they laughed. And because my daughter needs someone kind. She blinked at him, confused. But, look at me. People talk. I am not. I'm not looking for what people talk about, he said, then paused, amending softly, though I wouldn't say you're not pretty. A blush crept up her neck. I don't know what to say. Say yes, he urged. She opened her mouth, then hesitated. Unless, this is out of pity. His voice sharpened slightly, not unkind, but firm. I don't pity anyone who works hard and holds their head up. I need help. You need a place. That's all. She searched his face. It was weather-worn and unreadable, but not unkind. A soft voice called from behind him. Daddy. A small girl bounded toward them, her coat trailing behind her. Her curls were honeygold and wild, her cheeks pink from the cold. She stopped just short of my Lin, peering up with wide, curious eyes at the strange, beautiful red dress. Then she reached out a tiny, hesitant hand and touched the embroidered silk. It's like a poppy, she whispered in awe. My Lin's breath caught. She crouched down, her own voice trembling. What's your name, sweetheart? Lily, the girl said proudly. My Lin smiled, and Lily smiled back, the kind of smile that didn't weigh the world before it was offered. Then Lily looked from my Lin's face to her father's, a question in her wide blue eyes. She turned back to my Lin and, in a small, hopeful voice, she asked, Mama. The single word hung in the frozen air. Tears welled instantly in my Lin's eyes. Behind them, Cole stood very still, watching them both. She's lovely, my Lin managed to say. She doesn't say much to strangers, Cole murmured, his voice thick with emotion. She's not a stranger, Lily declared, then looked up at her father. Can she come home with us? A corner of Cole's mouth twitched. That depends on the lady. My Lin wiped her eyes with the handkerchief still in her pocket. I have never been much good at cooking Western food. I overboil tea. I fold sheets the wrong way. I don't drink tea, he replied, and Lily sleeps in a mess of blankets anyway. My Lin looked down at Lily's small hand, which had found its way into hers. She looked back up at Cole. All right, she said. He nodded once, as if they'd sealed something much bigger than a contract. The laughter that spilled from my Lin's lips was light and real, surprising even to herself. As they walked down the snow-packed road together, Lily skipping ahead, Cole steady beside her, my Lin realized she hadn't felt this kind of warmth in years. Not since she had believed someone could look at her and not see a foreigner, a burden, a shame. She hadn't known until now just how much she missed being wanted. The wind howled through the trees on Hollow Ridge, but inside the cabin, it was warm. My Lin moved cautiously through the kitchen, her hands fumbling over a pot of stew that had boiled over. It was her third mistake that morning. She had been at the cabin for 4 days, for days of waking early and fumbling through tasks she'd never been taught. Just do not be a burden, she told herself. If you stay out of the way, maybe they will not change their minds. Footsteps approached. She turned quickly. Cole stood there, glancing at the bubbling pot but saying nothing. He set down a tin bucket beside the stove, steam curling from the kettle inside. For washing, he said simply. The water was warm. Thank you, she whispered. He only nodded and stepped back out. No lecture, no sigh of disappointment. Just a bucket of warm water. Later that evening, my Lin found Lily scribbling furiously onto a scrap of brown paper. You're very focused, she said gently. Lily looked up, beaming. It's you. She held up the drawing. It was a clumsy oval face with dark hair, a red dress, and what looked like a flower. Pretty lady, Lily said. That's what I call you. My Lin crouched down, blinking fast. Lily crawled over to Cole, who was mending tack near the hearth. Daddy, look. Cole took the drawing carefully. His eyes lingered on the simple smile Lily had drawn. She's pretty, Lily said again, leaning against his leg. Cole said nothing, but he folded the picture gently and slipped it into the inside pocket of his vest. He didn't look at my Lin, who stood just far enough away to notice. That night, she found a folded towel on the end of her bed, warm from the stove, with a small, intricately carved wooden bird resting on top. No note, just a quiet kindness. The wind was sharp that morning when Lily's laughter rang out. Mylin turned toward the sound and froze. Lily had slipped past the fence and was standing in the paddock with 3 unbroken horses. One of them, a silver-grey stallion, snorted, pawed the earth, and reared its head. "No!" Mylin shouted. The horse tensed, preparing to charge. Mylin didn't think. She sprinted across the field, her heart pounding. The horse lunged. Mylin threw herself forward and wrapped Lily in her arms, turning her back toward the animal just as hooves thundered past. Then, strong arms grabbed them both. It was Cole. He had come running, and dragged them through the gate as the horse veered off. They collapsed onto the ground, Lily sobbing into Mylin's shoulder. Cole crouched beside them, his face ashen. "Are you?" he began, but stopped when he saw Lily's face buried in Mylin's arms. When Lily finally calmed, Cole looked up, his eyes meeting Mylin's. Quietly, he said, "You didn't even hesitate. She was out there alone. You could have been trampled. I didn't care." The silence that followed was thick with unspoken things. His gaze lingered, not on her past or her foreign dress, but on the way she held his daughter like something sacred. "You're more important than you think, Mylin," he said softly. By the end of her second week at Hollow Ridge, the town's whispers had found their way to the ranch. One afternoon, a voice stopped her as she carried supplies back from town. "Well, if it isn't the lost flower of the Orient." She turned. Marcus Thorne stood there, dressed in a coat too fine for Montana. His smile was all teeth. "Didn't expect to find you this far out," he said, stepping closer. "You always did have a habit of disappearing." "Why are you here?" she asked, her voice small. "I heard whispers about a Chinese girl with a past." "I came to see if the rumors were true," he clicked his tongue. "I came with an offer. Your name is still dirt in San Francisco. But I could help change that. Letters, a retraction, in exchange for finishing what you started." Her slap landed before she knew her hand had moved. "You lied," she said, breath shaking. "You ruined my family. And now you think I'd let you own me?" "I gave you a way out," he snarled. "She already has one," a voice answered. Cole stood just beyond the fence gate, arms crossed. He walked forward slowly. "This is between us," Marcus straightened. "No," Cole said. "You made it mine when you showed up here thinking she was still defenseless. She has a reputation." Cole's eyes narrowed. "You don't get to define what she's worth. I know she wakes before dawn. I know she scrubs and sews and burns herself trying to make someone else's house a home. I know she throws herself in front of a horse for my daughter." He leaned in. "And I know there's not a shred of her that needs your permission to be whole." Marcus scoffed, adjusted his collar, and turned away. "You'll regret this." "I doubt it," Cole muttered. He looked at Mylin. "You never have to answer for who you were, only who you are." That night, she realized the whispers in town didn't matter as much. Respect, she was learning, wasn't given. Sometimes, it began with one man who stood at the gate and said, "Enough." A few nights later, Mylin stood in the kitchen when she heard voices outside. It was the town's pastor. "Your daughter needs stability, Cole. A proper mother. The child deserves better than a house kept by a woman like that." Mylin's breath caught. Then came Cole's voice, calm and certain. "I don't need another wife." Her hand froze. "I didn't ask her to stay here for that," he continued. "I needed help with Lily. She has done more than anyone expected. That's all. That's all." The words echoed in the sudden silence of her heart. Help. A place filler. She walked to her small room and sat on the edge of the bed. The carved bird he'd given her sat on the nightstand. She stared at it for a long time before reaching for her satchel. She would disappear without a sound. By the time the moon was high, my Lin had slipped out the door. She didn't hear the soft footsteps on the stairs behind her. Lily woke with a start. Her room was too quiet. She padded to my Lin's door and pushed it open. The bed was made. The carved bird was gone. No, she whispered, her little fists clenched. She grabbed her coat and rushed outside, calling into the swirling snow. Mama! Mama! But the storm swallowed her voice. She kept running, past the barn and into the field, and then there was only silence. When Cole found Lily's bed empty, his heart stuttered. Lily, he shouted into the cold. Soon, lanterns bobbed across the ridge as neighbors joined the search. One woman had walked away in silence. The other had gone chasing after her. The wind moaned. My Lin had not gotten far when a deep dread stopped her cold. She had left, but what if Lily woke? What if she went looking? She turned back, her own panic rising. Lily, she cried, her voice cracking. The lantern in her hand swung wildly, casting shuddering shadows. Then, beneath the drooping branches of a lone pine, she saw it. A small shape, curled and still. Lily, she gasped, lunging forward. The little girl stirred as my Lin gathered her into her arms. Her limbs were stiff with cold, but her eyes fluttered open. I've got you, my Lin whispered, rocking her tightly. I thought you left forever, Lily hiccuped, her tiny fingers clutching my Lin's coat. I thought I should. Lily shook her head, tears freezing on her lashes. Don't. You make my daddy smile again. Before my Lin could respond, she heard the crunch of hurried footsteps. Cole appeared, his lantern held high. He saw them and ran, collapsing to his knees beside them, his arms wrapping around both in a fierce, trembling hold. Thank God, he breathed, his forehead pressed to my Lin's shoulder. Finally, he drew back, his eyes locking with hers. The storm that had lived inside him for years was gone. I never meant what you heard, he said, his voice raw. I didn't say I didn't want you. I said I didn't need another wife because... He paused, swallowing hard, because I already found the woman who made this house a home. Someone who brought my daughter back to life. My Lin's eyes brimmed with tears.